are now recording, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
It was so good.
Leave me alone. I'm an old
such a good intro.
It has been a very interesting week, and some things happened this morning that I want to tell everybody about before we start. As of Monday, that would be yesterday, based on a recording, New York and New Jersey have decided, well, maybe the pandemic's over. Let's start. Now, I'm bringing that up because for a long time, they have been the people who've been kind of saying, no, we don't want to do that. We got to wait for vaccines. We got to wait for herd immunity. We got to do that. And demographers have been sitting around going, hey, come on. Time's a wasting. There are a lot of places where they're seeking practices. They're telling us about all the great things that are going on. And finally, New York and New Jersey, Connecticut as well, have decided, no, we're now eliminating all of the restrictions on the business capacity size for offices, restaurants, gyms. And they said, oh yeah, we're doing it now, right now. And so there's almost no preparation. The reason I'm bringing it up is because there is very little research that we could do to say what the impact of these changes are going to be, which were made yesterday. Here's what's kind of ironic about the whole thing. A lot of people assume that as soon as a government body, like a state, city, county, decides we're open for business, that businesses, including healthcare practices, are going to flock to get in the door. People aren't quite like that. They take a little time to get their act together. And as it's happened, I think, yeah, they're going to get kind of a bump, but the prices on properties, on business properties, are really, really high right now in urban areas. And I'll talk about that a little today. So if anybody out there is trying to figure out, where do I put a practice? Should I purchase a practice in a particular place? Where should I go? All of this stuff is really kind of right now happening. So another little thing came up yesterday, and that was the price of lumber. And you may go, well, what do I care that it's $1,500 per 1,000 board feet? Well, it just means that it's going to be expensive to build new housing. This comes at a time in which the demand for single-family dwellings has never been higher, ever. And a lot of places that have good access to lumber, places that have been pretty open to the new construction, you'd think, wow, this is going to be great. And unfortunately, it's creating even a greater scarcity for new properties, particularly single-family homes, but it's also true for professional practice locations to be developed that are new. It's not happening everywhere, but it's happening in enough places that it's all of a sudden become a crisis. Now, if you'll be patient with me, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And that's because we've got a few things to talk about. You can see in the background, I've been working on my final exams for my students. And I don't know if you all know this, but I'm, in addition to all the things I'm doing with Dr. Demographics, I am a college professor of communications. Thank you very much. Which kind of gives me the bona fides on market research and new stuff that's happening. Now, the name of our little program today is They Went That-A-Way, just like in the old Westerns. And here's the deal. A lot of the traditions as to places that were doing really well and were likely to do well, everything's changing. So we're going to talk about some of those metrics and places that specifically that are doing well. Now, Dr. Demographics is all about knowing where to move, start a business, practice, promote your efforts, and get the most out of your location. Our job is to help you figure out the where issues. Where should you go? And where in the future is it going to be good? I mean, it's not enough to rest on our laurels and talk about 10 years ago, like a lot of our competitors. No, you got to know what's happening in the 5-year projections. Now, They Went That-A-Way refers to the idea that people are saying, where did everybody go? And where are they going to go? And why are they moving there? That's what our theme is on today. And it's kind of what our recurring theme has been the last couple of weeks. They may have been true once, these generalities of what places are going to be fantastic, but the rules are definitely changing. So let me go on. I want to talk about my maskless weekend. I had 3 meetings, 3 events that occurred that were pretty significant and are indicators that certain places are changing and the rules are changing. And the mask, the surgical masks are only kind of an idea of where it's happening. Now, here's what happened Sunday. Church was crowded. I'm a weekly church attender. I know, old-fashioned, old whatever. But the thing is, church was crowded, and everybody brought their kids. People are kind of sick about being alone. Now, you may think, well, our church is the safest place to go with all that singing going on. Actually, it was kind of amazing because it happened very, very fast, much faster, in fact, than anybody assumed. Second meeting, there was a teacher training that I attended, which had people from the East Coast attending an intermountain conference that I attended. So here's the deal. These people from and their mouths were ajar, agape. But what the heck is going on here? They noticed that all the stores, restaurants, bars, gyms, everything was open here in Utah. And they were going, that doesn't happen. I'm not even sure that if it was allowed, it would be happening that much. But I'm telling you, there is an attitude change which is shifting. Now, are people going to walk into your current office without masks on? Yeah, that's happening. And a lot of stores are saying, we'd really prefer that you wear a mask, but you don't want to wear one, we're fine. But it isn't the mask that's important. It's the idea that people are becoming a little more militant, but more importantly, they're getting an idea that I got to get out of my house. I got to get out of my place of work. I've got to do other stuff. And no, I don't want you, geek, to tell me I can't. Here's another thing that happened. I attended a statewide convention this weekend. There were more than 2,000 people present in this sports arena. I will confess to you that the people who were present were primarily on the conservative side, politically and culturally. And there weren't a lot of people wearing masks. So, there were maybe, I'm going to guess 0.5% of the people wore masks, but everybody else was going, heck no, I'm not going to wear a mask. Now, I only bring these 3 things up because they're 3 separate instances in which the attitudes of people in the United States seem to be changing, at least in the microcosm thing I saw. Now, as to that teacher training, what was funny in talking to the people who came from back east, they said, how much are houses here? I'm kind of thinking maybe we need to move here. There's so much of a sense of life. There's not so much fear. Obviously, crime is not a big deal. Hey, it's in Utah. But the thing is, the people there at the conference were thinking, we want to have a change in our lives. We want to move. And that attitude is being expressed a lot of places around the United States. Now, in the olden days, access to urban areas was absolutely necessary. And this is based really on a couple of years ago, even. Everybody felt like I have to be in a place in an urban area because that is where growth is, it's where money is, that's where things are happening, that's where I ought to be. And a lot of healthcare practices had the idea that we need to be close to the major employers, so therefore we need to move there too. Yeah, I get that. I think that's fine. But the thing is, it's changing, and it's changing quickly. There was also a belief that suburbs are not cool. Who wants to go to the suburbs? They're staid, they're boring, whatever. But after the lockdown, everybody realized the suburbs are the only places that people can actually live. It is not as though everybody's assuming there's going to be a new lockdown, but they are saying we didn't realize how vulnerable we were in our lives to never being able to go outside. We can't have our friends or family. There's no meeting place. There's nothing to do if you have to be in a small, isolated, controlled space. So it's made people kind of re-examine their lives and what they're doing and where you are living and working. And that is what's important for these people. So in the suburbs, it's not so uncool. Also, rural areas were considered too remote. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, up until about 4 years ago, unless you had a population of 20,000 residents or more within a 10-minute drive time of a practice, you felt pretty isolated. It was hard to maintain a full-time practice. But what's happening is practices have to be redefined as to what is a reasonable number of people living and working near a site to mean that there is enough there. The population density is being redefined. Now, part of that is home. They are there longer number of hours in their home or near their home, not necessarily at home, in order to justify having a practice there. So, you guys, that's what I'm talking about. The rural areas are being redefined as not being so remote as they once were. Crowds used to spell success. We used to believe if you had enough people in a concentrated area, it meant your practice, your business, your life was going to be great. But that is being reconsidered. Now, part of it is the idea of being available during isolation, that you can do meetings. But you see, it's not like everybody has to be locked down and to use Zoom. Now people are kind of saying, it wasn't so bad having that weekly meeting, making it shorter, getting an agenda and getting the heck out of there. I don't have to spend time commuting anymore. And that is changing the way people consider what's a convenient place to work, to live, to recreate. Ultimately, crowds are not as good as they once were, and probably we're not going to go back exactly to what we were before. Money was always considered in the downtown. If you wanted to make money in practice as well, you had to be near a hospital or a university or some place where there was a lot of business and stuff going on. Well, money is being dispersed surrounding much smaller locations. So you remember when I mentioned that about rural areas were too remote? Well, people are finding I can have a nice house, I can get a pool, I can do things, and I don't have to be right on top of my neighbors. So money is being dispersed into different neighborhoods. Now, I want to reevaluate sites with promise. Here are a few factors that I'm really recommending, and I'm going to talk about specific towns, so stick with me. Basically, it's the idea that people want to be in a place where the government regulators will not tell them that they have to lock down. Now, everybody's been saying, Idaho has been growing so well, and it has. But there's an attitude in Idaho that everybody has to understand. It is, get off my back. Idahoans are notoriously independent, and they don't like zoning laws. And so the idea that someone's telling you what to do has really caught on. And it isn't just in Idaho. If you look at Washington and Oregon, especially on the eastern sides of the state, it's a little more rural. A lot of people are having that same attitude. Utah, Nevada, even parts of Arizona, particularly on the north side, all over Texas, the idea that you can't control what I get to do is becoming very popular. And there's a rebellion against that and practices. Yeah, that too. Doctors, this is true. Now, one of the things we're saying is places with promise often have universities and colleges associated with them. It isn't just because of undergraduates going to school. It's because universities and colleges are becoming a place where business innovation is really going on. They are becoming the non-business place for business people to meet, to coordinate, to have conferences. And they're not as expensive as big fancy hotels and convention centers. So the universities and colleges, among a lot of demographers, are looking better and better. High-speed infrastructure is now really rising. Now, there was a time in which we used to have 300 baud modems. That's BAUD. And you heard that high squealing in the background. Well, that used to be popular. Then 1200 baud. Right now, almost every place has it. And in the United States, we are looking at satellite infrastructure that allows for high-speed internet access everywhere. And I mean everywhere. You don't have to be hooked up to a landline in order to make this happen. Speeds are ridiculously high. And it looks like within the next year, we are going to do maybe doubling or quadrupling of what our speeds are presently. Additionally, the costs for high-speed access is going down, making every location in America a reasonable place to put a practice, to see people, and to communicate with other people. The other thing I want you to keep an eye out for is young population. Now, you may think I'm saying, well, the median age has to be super young. It does not. But I am saying there are some parts of the United States that have always had a young population, but it is the idea that you have a higher birth rate that's bringing that young population. Well, the median age is dropping because of that. But you also have a mixed thing where people of a particular age group are being with other people of a particular age group, but they don't want to pay a lot of money. I'm not going to go into how the statistics were derived, but we've dropped about 10% of college admissions. A lot of people are saying, screw it, I'm not getting what I want. And part of it is because online courses are less expensive. And people aren't feeling like I have to put my life on hold to get big loans and then hope I can pay it back. So the young are not acting like the young used to, and the things that make them successful aren't quite like they used to be. And I'll talk about the next one is important for the young, and that's the entrepreneurial mentality. There is an attitude that exists right now among a lot of young people. They go, I don't want to put in 5 to 10 years before starting a business or even a practice. I want to do it now. I want to do it right now. I want to start making more money and having more success. And a lot of you are in that boat. There was a time in which nobody wanted to step out unless they had a practice for sale. But the people who can help you as an entrepreneur in practice, well, it's growing. The expertise is better. Off-site experts are also really making these things happen. I'm just telling you, practice management and practice marketing are making some major shifts. And we think maybe at Dr. Demographics, we're part of that. Now, here's a big thing I want you to really take a point. People say, where should I go in the United States? Single family dwellings, that's what an SFDU is, are really where everybody wants to go right now. So if you're trying to find where should I go, obviously growth is important, but an increase in single family dwelling units is really the key. You have to find a place that has existing single family dwelling units, or more importantly, affordable ones, which means they're going to tend to be small, have a small footprint, meaning maybe 3 bedrooms, which one of those bedrooms being an office, and having a backyard, a place to put a barbecue. Last little thing that's making SFDUs very popular is garages, a place to park your car. Now, I'm just saying how big these are, it's going to vary a lot, how expensive they are also. But if you're looking for a place to practice, these 6 items are particularly important. The 7th one is not measurable, and that is a no mask mentality. Get the friggin' mask off my face. You better be kind to me, but we're not doing this thing anymore where we want to be controlled by everybody. I believe there is a major backlash, which has already started and which is going to be bigger, particularly in urban and some suburban areas that are densely populated, against some of these social justice warrior types. I think it can get ugly, but I'm just saying that's another thing. If you want to know where to go, kind of keep that as a metric. Now, places with promise for this month. These are things that I've recently seen. I'm going to give you the state and the metropolitan areas within it. That does not mean, for example, Austin, Dallas, and Houston are the only places in Texas to go. Consider them to be the center of gravity within these states. No, I'm not throwing off San Antonio. I'm not saying that Bee Cave isn't a fantastic place, or Pflugerville. Hey, they're wonderful. Don't think of the downtowns, though, as being the places with promise. I'm saying these are the centers of gravity for them. Tennessee right now is hot, very, very hot. There are three parts, if you go east to west, that are what Tennessee is all about. Look, Nashville and Knoxville right now are remarkable. Clarksville, fantastic. But I'm just saying the state overall is doing well. And these smaller towns are fitting the categories of what I'm talking about. By the way, in Texas, you don't have to go to play huge money. Fort Worth is right next to Dallas, and it has a lot of wonderful qualities that I've already mentioned. Now, Arkansas has surprised a lot of people, particularly in Fayetteville. Little Rock and Pine Bluff are a little bit more under the radar, but represent serious opportunities. Now, if you're a young doctor fresh out of school and you're thinking, hey, where should I go? Well, first of all, Fayetteville is a great place to start your search. But Little Rock, which is in the center of the state, and Pine Bluff, represent good areas of opportunity that are not already very crowded. Look, Bentonville, where Walmart is headquartered, is a lovely place. I like it a lot. But even then, it doesn't have the high prices that you see in a lot of places within the East Coast, let's say, or even the West Coast. These are places in flyover country, and they're looking good. So let me go on. I don't want to stop too early. Iowa. Now everybody's going, Iowa? Iowa. What's in Iowa? Well, some of the fastest growing and best places to live and practice and work are in Iowa. And it's not just Iowa per se. You're making a mistake if you think I'm only saying Iowa. It's that region. It's mid-America, if you will. Cedar Rapids, Davenport, and Des Moines are good examples of cities that have always been relatively successful and have affordable houses, but also have universities and show a lot of animal spirits to them. So if somebody says to you, hey, where should I go? I'm going to say, well, have you thought about Middle America? Arkansas and Iowa both are categorized as that. But Iowa has got lots of really good places to consider. And by the way, I could go on and on and on about lots of other places. I already mentioned Idaho, but that's not on my list. Anyway, here's a surprise, North Dakota. And you're going, North Dakota? It's cold in North Dakota. Yes, it is. It's also affordable in North Dakota. Has the universities, has the age group that you want, has affordable housing, has lots of business, and Fargo and Bismarck, not right next to each other, are pretty good locations within North Dakota. Now, is South Dakota as good? Parts of it are very good. And I don't want you to think narrowly. I'm only giving you an idea of what we're seeing this week in the demographic market that you should consider. Now, I'm going to make it a little announcement here. The state briefings are, at least in their current formulations, are ending. Now, I'm saying that doesn't mean we're not going to offer state briefings. Mike and I were talking about it just today, how we can make the state briefings work better. The problem is they take so long for me to do. I mean, several hours for each one. And by the time I have edited a new one, the data is aging. So we got a problem. I've got really recent data. It's the narrations that are killing me. So we're trying to think of something that might be better. But if you have any desire for a state briefing, it's a very inexpensive product. Right now, what I'm trying to do is to add telephone consultations. So if there's a part of the country you want to know about, you might want to look at doing a telephone consultation. They're $225 and well worth talking about the areas you're interested in with today's data. That's what the value is. I know how cheap everybody is and they don't want to pay anything, but the truth is, if you want to make a big mistake, get old data. If you want to know what's going to happen in the future, you're going to have to do a little something to make sure it's really recent. Consultations can be set up in just a couple of days. It's not hard to do, it's not expensive, and it's highly prone to discuss just what you are after. So I want to go back to that. Look on the website at drdemographics.com for telephone consultation. It's actually a teleconference. So we're doing these on computer. So if you want to get in touch with us, you call 833-424-6222. But probably the best way is to go to drdemographics.com. You can send us an email. You can order reports from that. And in the drop-down menus, we list all of our prices. And by the way, you know that a lot of demographic companies say, oh, yeah, we take care of dentists. Very often they're handling general dentists. They don't do anything for specialists. We do. The metrics are much more complicated than they will ever tell you, so give us a shot. This is Scott McDonald. You can write to us, like I said, at info@drdemographics.com. And I want to thank all of you for listening and watching. And I wish you the best of luck. Take care.